It's almost like I'm filibustering or something, I think. But actually, today is the day that the 10-day time period to petition for review of the hearing officer's order dismissing my complaint um, is due, and OPC has. I'm not going to let them file what they want to file because it's bad enough that they withheld all this stuff that Pepco gave them from me, but also let Pepco submit everything by email to them. So therefore, it's not going to be on the record for appeal. Isn't that fun? Um, there must be 50 ways to cheat your customers. But let's see. The order, the order. It's absolutely insane. I mean, it just like concludes. Since November 2024, the meter readings and resulting invoices have been accurate. Says who? I mean, sure. Uh-huh. And then, and then get this. This is great because the hearing officer applies the Administrative Procedures Act, uh, Chapter 2, 509 for contested cases, which is really, really funny because the commission actually argued that the rate case for the 2024 to 2026 um, rates that just got vacated. I knew that the commission and Petco tried to argue that that was not a contested case, but somehow me wanting to get, what was it? Uh, how do I get an accurate bill? Verifiable meter reading? That's a contested case. And so he says, I bear the burden of persuasion. But it's funny because like his footnote even talks about how the fact finder cannot rely on unsupported conjecture to explain its decisions. But that's like literally exactly what he's doing. The whole thing is garbage. But my favorite piece of garbage is paragraph 20, where the hearing officer says complainant's reliance on her solar application data does not satisfy her burden. And he says that complainant has not offered any evidence beyond her software application data that Pepco's register readings are incorrect. And like, I, there is no solar application data. The brief that I wrote that Pepco won't respond to, and the hearing officer doesn't care that nobody's responding to, says that Pepco's original answer they moved to dismiss based on this non existent data. And I said they should have to answer my complaint. And then in response to my brief, Pepco argued that I was relying on solar data again. That was when I sent Mr. Adeyemo an email and said that this was a legal proceeding and that Pepco was being abusive, and asked Pepco to provide information in response to whichever commission rule it is for formal hearings, where it says that upon reasonable notice, the parties shall exchange all relevant information. It has a whole list of things. He ignored that. I mean, he gave me the transcript of the April 22nd, 2025 meeting the next day, which was nice because, he withheld it before my brief was due, much like he withheld this April 29th letter that Glenn Ruck, one of your senior energy engineers, wrote to whom it may concern about my account with the whole analysis saying that Pepco owed me 19 kilowatt hours. Um, and I'm sort of assuming that to whom it may concern meant that it went to OPC because it doesn't really make sense for OPC to just like not submit a brief. That would be too obvious. Everybody's performing at surface level, and you can't you, you can't leave somebody hanging like that because then, of course, the commission hearing officer couldn't railroad them on Petco's behalf. And I sort of screwed everything up by writing my own brief. but everybody just ignored it anyway. It wasn't like I spent weeks. I have an email like the day before it's due at like 5 in the morning to Stephen Marenstick, my attorney, saying Birds were chirping and telling him how nice it felt to be the only person involved in the process who cared about anything. I actually have one back when I was writing my complaint as well. And I thought they were just understaffed or that this stuff was just too above their heads. But anyway, um, he's kicking my case by saying I didn't meet my burden based on evidence that I never submitted. I never argued. And like, Pepco can't just let that stand. I mean, come on, you guys committed fraud on the tribunal, Mr. Adeyemo, again in January after I told Ms. Bancroft what was going on. He repeated that lie again. And now, after, I wrote it down somewhere, 533 days, my case is going to get dismissed because Pepco is committing fraud on the tribunal. That's messed up. So, like what? I mean, I obviously know what I'm talking about. I just talked for an hour and 28 minutes, and now I've already gone for another six and a half. And I can go, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm still talking in 2 hours because there's that much here. And I can't get anybody at Pepco to talk to me. The only times I thought it was going to get better when the attorneys got involved. I am used to working. It's like leading joint defense group meetings with attorneys who represent like the top tech companies in the world. And Mr. O'Neill was like telling me I can't do math. His, it is offensive. And I just don't understand how you could treat any customer this way. You are a monopolistic utility. And that doesn't matter of law, not a matter of right. I don't care how much you're paying the commission or the DC government or whoever to let you do this. You can't. And I'm going to stop it. My friends are actually worried that, like, I'm going to get shot. Like, seriously, because I know too much. So please keep that in mind that people are worried about my safety because of what I've uncovered and how deep this goes. Anyway, so, all right, let's see. We are now going to go back to my main screen and we're going to turn off my camera. And okay, all right, now this is really fun. Okay, so I think this is Stephen, my attorney, says, see this, how it says it's not validated under the status. And here's what Miss Radiomi says. I think obviously the word not validated means something more to you all than it does to us. Inconceivable. I do not think that word means what you think it means. It's just a process designation. This means that this is in the Itron system straight from the meter. Okay, first of all, the meter goes through UI. Like the meter data goes to UIQ first and then into Itron. And Itron is where data is validated. It's where the validation, editing, and estimation step comes through. And he says that until we actually use it for billing, we wouldn't consider it to be validated because it's not there. It's not an indication of whether or not the data itself is actually what is coming from the meter. It's just a status that we use internally from when it's on the Itron. Um, I just need you to let that sink in for a minute. Like anybody who actually understands this stuff. Oh wait, look, I can make everybody understand it. Oh, look what Itron itself has to say about reading validation. Reading validation is an essential component of meter data management. The goal is to achieve a high degree of confidence that meter data accurately reflects energy, actual energy usage. Reading validation uses mathematical analysis to determine if raw interval, that's the net hourly usage stuff, and the register data, the midnight reads, fall within accepted tolerances. If it doesn't, there are several methods for correcting it, which we don't need to go into. But here's my favorite part: unreliable data cannot support billing, food research, forecasting, planning, or asset analysis. Well, all of my data is not validated. So, how is that supported for billing? And then I'm pretty sure this load research, forecasting, planning, and asset analysis has bigger implications for, your rate increase requests and stuff. So, what is even happening? And why are you lying to the tribunal? I mean, it's nuts. This one, which readings are validated? You know, um, Validation is triggered by the editing process or manual validation. And then it creates a new version of the data, but you see you have the older version somewhere and fails. But Papco won't give me any logs on my account because Mr. Adriano says that it could risk the security of the system. I mean, the security of the fraud, I guess, but nothing I've asked for is confidential business information. It's business. It's settings on my account, my meter, and you can't withhold that. I have personally been responsible for the production of the world's most valuable intellectual property, and I drafted just you know, perfect protective orders because they had to be, because this stuff was so valuable. I know how these things work. We could go to Iron Mountain if you're that concerned. You can't just claim everything's confidential because it might be a security issue. I'm actually worried about security issues because your own employees can't tell which of the various numbers are actually my meter reading. There's this crazy email thread from November 2024 where they're like, where's this reading coming from? Where's this reading? I mean, if you guys don't know what their readings are, why doesn't somebody just come and actually check my meter? Oh, because that would prove you were committing billing fraud. And then look at this one, editing register reads. This is my favorite because, oh, you can't edit register reads. They are constants. Well, yeah, you can. And I don't know why everybody keeps lying. Um, but maybe it's because the commission hasn't actually done anything to make you update your data requests. I even asked Lawrence Daniels, and in July or August of 2025 about things like there's actually a data request about estimation. There's a data request about how much energy has been sent back to Petco's grid before that wasn't credited to customers. Man, I'll bet that's a good one. But why would you answer it? Why would you update it if nobody cares? I mean, I care, but you know, who am I? I'm just a customer. I have no power, and you own the commission. So, and it's great because OPC is protecting you, and everybody's conducting business off the record. So there's this like sham representation of the public while you're really excluding the public from the Public Service Commission stuff. And yeah, you could say, oh, it's the commission. Well, you know what? You have to be a responsible company when you're a Fortune 200 company because it's not really fair to cheat people. And I think that, your shareholders might care about that. I know I care about that. Um, that's why nobody will actually let me testify or speak because I know too much. And heaven forbid I tell the truth to people. But I created a website. I took the time. Do you know how hard it is to learn WordPress? I mean, I used to write code, but that was a long time ago. Not on any of this type of crap. Um, and so here's one. This is where Mr. Adayama says that the KE multiplier that he talks about is he says it's actually the KH meter constant, which it's not, but it is used to convert interval reads into engineering units. And so it only applies to interval reads. So it definitely is not a meter constant. Um, and also, the KE multiplier would not be detected by the commission's meter test. So that means that Pepco is applying these multipliers, but it's telling the commission and telling customers that the meter test is dispositive, and it's not. And you're using that to shut down complaints. And that's not cool. Not only that, but this is how much time I've spent on this. Guess what I know? I know that when the merger was approved, paragraph 105 of the terms and conditions can call for severance of the Exelon Pepco relationship if there is a finding of material violations of your legal obligations. Now, obviously, the commission um, isn't going to, they, they won't even accept complaints, right? Like, everything they do is to get people to go away. So they're never going to investigate you. But I would think that, who knows when the DOJ, the SEC get wind of this, or when Mayor Bowser leaves office and stops appointing these criminals who are in charge of the commission. Except that it's DC, so we'll never get caught. The DC government is too easily bought. So anyway, the KE multiplier, that's just something that Googly is making up as well. It's a meter constant. Oh, look, and even here I have this learn metering. This was a really helpful website when I was trying to figure things out. Um, but here the KH value, oh, look at that. That's the meter constant. And guess what? That's what your tariff requires. Um, do we have the tariff? I bet we do. Maybe not. Is that it? Oh, it is. Look, I am on top of things. Look, residential service schedule R. Meter reading. Watt-hour meters will be read to the nearest multiple of the meter constant and bills rendered accordingly. That means that you can't be applying these KE multipliers without disclosing them. I mean, I spent so much time because it's crazy. Nobody at the commission, nobody to a piece, nobody in government, actually. I still can't even get anybody to tell me what the inverter profile settings are for my system. and and literally the commission's rules were amended. I think that was in 2021 or 2022 to require that information to be in the contract. Um, and you guys don't put it there, and nobody will actually tell me. It's really, really weird. Also, there's super high voltage on my line, which I have not talked about yet. It's I think it's the between November 17th and let's say May 8th, the meter probe data on channel 3, which Finlay said was the line to line voltage, but there's actually a chart that shows it's the line to neutral voltage, which is interesting because that means that meter's programmed to be a um, network meter when I have a Form 2S residential meter. But the hourly voltages for that entire time never go below 246. And I think that the B zone under the IEEE is it 1547? I can't even remember. Anyway, there's like a range, B range, and then C range. And so it is 252 to say 254, maybe I don't know, but that's the B range. And for 11% of the hours between November 17th and May 8th. My voltage is at my meter measures above 252. And B zone range, whatever it is, should only happen infrequently, which means, and I try to tell Pepco this, but nobody will actually talk to me about it. That means that you guys have the set point too high, and between that and the volt bar curve that you're using on the inverters, you're curtailing people's generation because you can. I mean, it's, I can't. It is literally criminal. Um, but see, this is watt hour meters will be read. Okay. And it's wild because let's see. Um, this is my brief, but at the end, see, we have here. All right, like this. It's width. Okay, so every bill that Pepco issues says your meter records electric energy use in hourly intervals, which actually, by the way, is incorrect. My meter records in 15-minute intervals because there's this little flash that says EOI, which means end of interval, and I must have, I don't know, well over 1,000 pictures of my meter at this point because numbers add up. Like it's just, the the display reading and the information on the portal and the bill, if it's a meter, right? Like if I go to the gas station and I pump 10 gallons of gas and I only have a 10-gallon tank and the meter says 15, I know there's a problem, right? And if I have an odometer and it's set for miles, right? But then somebody secretly changes it to kilometers. So I drive 6 miles and it says I went 10. I mean, that's the type of stuff you guys are doing. It's insane. But um so it's actually in 15-minute intervals. I don't know if you do that for non-solar because I only really started paying attention after my billing got all messed up. But then it says that the bill is the total of all of the hourly intervals recorded during your billing period. Now, there's no approval for interval billing. There's actually I can't find any mention of interval billing on the docket anywhere. I mean, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist because the commission seems to have things conveniently indexed, so it's hard to find stuff they don't want you to find. But there's no approval of that, and I didn't even, this is not my field of law. I did not put the whole rate schedule tariff billing fraud thing together until recently because the under DC code you cannot charge more or less than you're allowed to do based on your rate schedule. So if the rate schedule requires watt hour meters to be read within the watt hour constant, which is that 10 watt hours, so you have to here's multiple of 10 watt hours, not whatever you guys are doing. And then it says that the end and start date kilowatt hour meter readings are provided for informational purposes only. I have, I have had it beaten into my head so many times. But the rest of the world needs to know, they deserve to know the total use numbers. Those total use numbers are the sum of the intervals, the meter readings, the difference between those should be the actual meter readings. So if you don't have a sum check error, then that will be the case. But in my case, 2 days after I filed my complaint, they turned off interval billing because they needed to force the register readings printed on the bill, which aren't, well, quote unquote register readings. They have to equal the total use. And because I'm replacing the data, When I filed my complaint, I said, as soon as the September bill issued, the magnitude of usage went back up to normal, and that's one of the reasons why I was really worried about it, was because it looked like it was an ongoing thing. It was going to happen again in October. Um, but the back office building, Natia Joyce, turned off the interval readings because they weren't going to keep replacing the interval readings during the billing because I caught them. Now the problem is that the I don't know whether the Wizard of Oz is like the advanced technology, or if it's somebody. I mean, I don't think these guys actually are the architects of all of this, because I think that, like, AC AC pushes out these monthly scripts to the meters, to change the inflation factors using the CT and PTs, based on seasonal weather and stuff. But those are all computer generated. Clearly, it's not like some of these things are calculating just for everybody. So they're just, pressing the button for the script. And I lost my ring of fire. So somebody realized, right, that they can't just, um, like, the bills won't go through, right, if the uh, the interval does not match the meter reading total. And again, they intentionally set my meter reading total to be off by a factor of 10. So then when the greedy power company billing kicked in August, they intentionally took me from 538 to a 54 kilowatt hour credit, by quote unquote resetting the interval, which I can't remember what it said, and not that at this point it's been so long, but the resetting of the intervals is just a construct in the iTron Enterprise Edition database. It does not actually deal with the meter. Actually, I did think I said that, but I'm going to take another break. I will be back.